What's up guys, Moniz here and welcome to my review of the ASUS Zephyrus M. This is the 501 and this was first introduced late 2017, but it came with a pretty funky keyboard with the trackpad on the bottom right hand side, which is a terrible position for left-handed users like me, and a pretty high-end price tag. It also came with a 1080 Max-Q processor. Well, this year they've refined it. They brought in a full-size GTX 1070, and it's using the latest Coffee Lake processors, which give you 6 cores. This is hands down the most exciting ASUS product that I've used in the last 3 to 4 years. This one happens to use premium materials like this metal lid on the top end of the device, brushed aluminum going across, and you have an ASUS logo, which is not too overbearing compared to the other products which have red and green surrounding the entire laptop. And there's also a cool lid that rises the laptop up in order to allow the CPU and GPU to cool. Now, it's not as light as some of the Ultrabooks or even XPS 15s that are currently on the market, but it's still much lighter than the 6 or 7 pound gaming laptops that we're used to. It's also quite thin, making it very simple and easy to put into your backpack. There also happens to be a good amount of I/O. On the left-hand side, you have your power connector in order to charge the device, a full-size HDMI port, 3 USB 3.0 port, and an audio mic combo jack. On the right-hand side, you have one more USB 3.0 port and a USB Type-C Thunderbolt 3 port. So essentially down the road, if you find the 1070 not to be powerful enough, you can hook up an external GPU and keep this laptop going. Now, getting inside is pretty straightforward. You remove all the screws and the bottom lid pops off easily. In fact, it's actually 2 portions that you take off. Once you're inside, 2 things are not upgradable: the CPU and GPU. Those are soldered on, but that's pretty typical for most laptops in general. The bottom left-hand hard drive is 1 terabyte. It's a 5400 RPM drive. This is gonna be your D drive. This is where you're gonna store your games and your documents. But for whatever reason, if you want a faster SSD, you can swap it out for one. Then you have the M2 Pcie Nvme drive. This thing is insanely fast. This is where your operating system is gonna go. This is where you're gonna get those really fast boot times and load times for any programs that are installed on it. I also have 16 gigabytes of RAM installed on this device, but it can be upgraded to 32. Now, there's one thing you're gonna notice: the size of the battery is 55 watt hours, which means you're not gonna get good battery life with this device. In fact, I was only getting about 3.5 to 4 hours of use before needing to charge. Plus, if you're a serious gamer, you're gonna keep this thing plugged in anyways, because once you take it off the plug, usually the laptop itself will thermal throttle in order to preserve battery life. The display has to be one of my favorite features about this device. It's 15 inches, full HD, it's IPS, and doesn't support touch. But it is matte, which means you're not gonna get crazy reflections if you're in the sunlight or have light coming into your room. But what really stands out is the fact that it has G-Sync and 144 Hz. Now, if you've ever gamed on a monitor with a lower refresh rate, you know how hard it is to go back to that after you've used a monitor that has 100 Hz and over. It also happens to have pretty good color accuracy. I'm getting about 98% sRGB, which is pretty great compared to a lot of gaming laptops that I tested last year. On top, you have your typical 720p potato cam. Of course, you can see the quality looks like this, a lot of noise, but to be honest, the cam itself is fine for streaming, especially if you're using Twitch, because the picture itself is gonna be really, really small. So this laptop is fairly thin, which means you're not gonna get big speakers inside of here. However, they managed to pack 2 speakers on the bottom of the device. They're not super loud, but they're loud enough to have an enjoyable gaming experience. They do tend to favor bass with decent mids to highs. So if that's not good enough, you can always carry a gaming headset with you. The keyboard is full size, which means you get a numeric keypad on the right-hand side. Those keys themselves are slightly smaller compared to the main keyboard. The main keyboard is very comfortable to type on and very comfortable to game on. The travel distance is slightly smaller though, at probably around 1.5. In fact, the travel distance reminds me a lot of the Dell XPS 15 if it was to actually get gaming keys. I do love the fact that ASUS included dedicated keys for the volume, microphone, and command center. This just allows you to get to places a little bit quicker. But what really impressed me about the deck in general is the touchpad. This is the first time in a long time I've used a touchpad on a gaming laptop that's actually really good. it actually beats out some of the Ultrabooks that I've tested recently. Now, it's not as good as the one on the XPS 15, but for a gaming laptop, it's fantastic. My only complaint about it is probably the size. I do wish it was a little bit bigger, but again, this is a gaming laptop and most people will be connecting an external mouse anyways. Let's talk about performance, exactly what this laptop is meant to do. You're getting an i7-8750H inside of here, so you're getting 50% more cores compared to last year's processors. That means you get 6 cores and 12 threads. So anything like editing video, playing games, streaming, and playing games at the same time is gonna run significantly better this year compared to last year. Now the H processor means you can't overclock it, but to be quite honest, this paired with the GTX 1070 is more than enough power to go around. Now, in terms of games, expect to get anywhere from 60 to 120 frames per second with settings set to high. If you bump it up to ultra on some games, you'll probably get about 60 to 80 depending on the game, and there's a couple more intensive games where that will be just below 60, but overall, a very good gaming experience. Now this brings me into heat, and usually with most laptops in 2017, with thermal throttle and there'd be overheating issues. ASUS has done a fantastic job with the Zephyrus. Not only does that hinge design allow air to flow from the sides and the bottom, it also does a good job of keeping the CPU cool. Using my strenuous heat test, I never surpassed 80 degrees Celsius, and this was like running it for a solid hour. Even just doing standard things like rendering a video, the laptop handled heat very well. The only areas that it gets kind of hot is the surface temperatures. I was getting about 50 degrees Celsius, which is a little on the higher side, but I'm okay with that as long as the CPU and GPU remain cool overall. Next is noise, and this is one area I wish ASUS kept the 1080 Max-Q from the 2017 design. You see, that GPU is slightly faster than the 1070, but also has a lower thermal output, which means it doesn't produce as much heat, and also it doesn't produce as much noise. Now, this laptop is not insanely loud that you're gonna not be able to hear what you're doing, but it does get a little bit loud that it can be sometimes distracting. So this wraps up my review of the ASUS Zephyrus M. A nice big improvement from last year's 2017 model. The new 8th gen Coffee Lake processors make a big difference. ASUS corrected any heat issues. This laptop runs nice and cool except for surface temperatures. Has an amazing 1080p display with IPS G-Sync and a really high refresh rate. And it's all in a small and portable package. The only things that I can complain about is basically battery life could be better. And I would have wished it came with a 1080 Max-Q instead of a 1070 because you get less thermal output and slightly lower fan noise. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.